and thank you for joining me in a new episode of Ancestral Healing with Alida. Today we have a special guest, Erin Carroll. Erin is the founder of Gentle Giraffes and a trained master newborn care specialist, trained postpartum doula, car seat tech, oral dysfunction specialist, and newborn sleep specialist. She also trains newborns, infants, and toddlers in a respectful way to take care of them. Hello, Erin.
Hi, Alida. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm fascinated. When we met, I was telling her, like before we started recording this, how I'm so fascinated about everything that is connected with motherhood. And I think that you need to have a big heart to do something with when you work with babies. So I think that that's very, very important to highlight here. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you. I want to start talking, have this conversation. Today, we're going to talk basically about motherhood, newborns, babies, and the soul journey of each person. So, I want to start this conversation talking to you about psychic life. I do believe I do also past life regressions besides family constellations, and I believe that there is a consciousness before my physical realm. And I do think that a baby chooses who's going to be the mother. I think that a baby is coming from another portal, from another place, and trying to go back to earth to finish something, some type of story or entanglement with this family. From your expertise, what do you think about this?
So let's just get a little bit back. So yes, I am also very much in the spiritual realm as well. As you know, I've had some sessions with you. I've had some sessions with a lot of other family practitioners over the years as well. With that being said, I believe that there is a soul connection that comes into the physical body, and the soul doesn't come in until right before the baby's born. That doesn't mean that the soul isn't circling around, doesn't mean that the contracts haven't already been signed. It just means that when the connection actually makes is right before the baby is delivered. With that being said, I have read the book Spirit Babies.
That's an amazing book.
It is an amazing book. It is really great. I've had a couple of sessions with somebody who is a spirit baby, intuitive, over the years. On top of that, I do what I do. And part of what I do is working with newborns is I'm super intuitive with them in general. And I can kind of, like I say, I communicate with them. But part of it is that I just know what they need to a certain extent. Part of my gifts is that, but also some of my gifts too is about I can never say it right, but it's kinesthesis. So I know kind of like the body, where they need help with the body of different ways that may not be on, it's not on a medical threshold, it's more on the functional threshold with them, but I intuitively know what they're talking about. So when you're talking about the souls coming in, I do believe that there is a connection with all of that. For instance, I'm adopted, so I had a birth mother, but my contract, so to speak, was that she was going to house me, for birth, and then I was going to be adopted by another woman who was going to raise me. Now, as you and I know, we all come here to this life and we have these lessons that we learn and to be able to help us grow. And we all come with certain contracts and certain lessons that we have to learn. Now, not everybody takes those lessons and really learns them, but if you don't learn them the first time, they're going to keep coming back until you learn them, and they'll come back with a vengeance the more the more times they have to come back. So when it comes to babies and spirit babies and the contracts, there is so much stuff that goes on with them. There's reasons why babies don't always make it earthside too, and that could be part of their contract. And it's not something I tend to talk about in my practice, just because of the emotional aspect that it can bring in. Unless, somebody wants to talk to me about it, but we don't talk about it typically. Personally, I truly believe there are reasons why people don't, or why babies don't come to fruition, in certain times. That's where I stand with it. It could be a lesson for them. It could be a lesson for the birthing parent. It could be a lesson for all sorts of things. Or where you and I have spoken to before, where it could be the fact that they want to come back here to Earth, but they're so scared because they're scared of what might happen to them because of the last time that they were here, and then they pull out afterwards. But that could be part of their contract as well. So there's myriads of reasons of why they come and why they don't come. In the grand scheme of things, in the multiple universes and dimensions that there are, there's hundreds of reasons of why things happen.
What is I don't know, a nice story to tell about one of your intuitive communications with one of your babies, your clients' babies, your baby's clients?
So several years ago, when I was kind of testing this out, I was with the baby. It was the third time I was with this family. So it was their third baby. And I was just testing out the things that I have learned and the way that I need to be able to communicate with them. And what I was getting was is that there's something going on with his leg. And I was like, yeah, so I'm still starting. So I'm not fully trusting myself. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. That's just, I'm making this up. Well, 2 days later, the mom says, have you ever noticed what's going on with his leg? And I was like, ooh, that's my confirmation that, like, yes, I have, but I didn't really dig deeper into it because I just thought it was, my crazy mind. So that was like one of the things where it came to my intuition with them and there was something kind of going on. One of the biggest things that I have with intuition wise is really when it comes to the mouth and the throat and kind of like the head. In my view, with what I know and what I see, the amount of babies that I see that have challenges in this area, it's like the center point of the body. It's literally connects the entire head to toe. And if we don't have optimal growth in the mouth, the tongue moving, it can really set them back. Not only just, we talk so much about it when it comes to breastfeeding, but it can happen with bottle feeding. It can happen with just regular eating. I have oral stuff. I didn't know that until I was in my 40s, but if I look back in my life, I had my wisdom teeth taken out when I was in 8th grade. I had my nasal passages open when I was as an adult. Obviously, I was breathing, but when I had them open, I was like, wow, I can actually really breathe. Well, part of what's going on is that I have a high palate, I have a narrow mouth. My tongue doesn't fit in my mouth. That's why my teeth didn't really fit in my mouth. That's why my wisdom teeth were taken out. The high palate is pushing up against my nasal passages, so not everything drains properly. But it's also where when they opened it, I was able to breathe better. So I'm getting more oxygen to my brain, which helps me be able to breathe. Now, as I've gotten older, there's other things that can happen with it. What I realized too is that it's connected to my hips. My hips didn't grow optimally. Obviously, I was able to walk. I played sports internationally. I won awards with that. So obviously, I was healthy and being
What
able to
sports?
function. I played soccer was my main one,
Oh my god.
but I played lacrosse. I love lacrosse. Just different. But when I was playing soccer, a lot of times I would shank a ball and I never understood why. I was like, I had everything in alignment. My hips were in alignment. My feet were in alignment, everything. It never made sense until I was an adult and they were like, your hip, one of your left hip is a little off. Well, I see a chiropractor now. I see a rolfer. I see an acupuncturist who helps with all of that in that area to be able to keep them in alignment so that I don't get the pain or the aches and stuff that we get as we get older. Well, if I was a newborn and we figured that out, we could have been able to do stuff to be able to help it grow optimally. Obviously, we don't know, but there is a very, very high chance that I wouldn't have had those issues when I was playing soccer. And I wouldn't have the issues now that we all have, like when we get older and we have these aches and pains and we call our bodies falling apart too. So to me, I find that it is just fascinating to know how the body functions and how when we're newborns and our bones are 70% water and we're just really kind of like a rag doll, why we don't focus on helping them get to optimal development. And that's one of the things that I really, really educate my clients on. A lot of them think I'm crazy because it's a new way of thinking of things, and especially where we live. We live in the medical capital of the world, and just society at large has always just put all their eggs in medical, which they're awesome and we need them and they bring so much goodness to our world. But they tend to only support people when it hits a medical threshold. And that's based on their training, based on what they've seen and all of that. But there's so much more that we can do before it gets to that. And many times we may be able to mitigate a medical ever being involved because we've been able to help them on a functional level. We can also help them on a spiritual level too. And once we get them there and helping them grow from day one, we're really helping them as they optimally grow older. I mean, I've got clients that really contributes one of their second child to how fast she crawled, how fast her teeth came in. All of these things is because I was like, there's something just not going right. She has oral stuff. She's, I think you need to see an OT. So I sent her to the OT that I recommend clients see, who is very well versed in working with newborns and infants. She's also extremely knowledgeable when it comes to oral stuff. She is also a professor to post grad
Can
OTs.
I say something? What will be an oral stuff? What will be an oral stuff that you will see in a baby?
So what would I see is that they're losing the latch. Their mouth may not be sucking properly. They could have nasal congestion. They're not getting full feeds because they're not able to suck. Their jaw isn't strong enough to suck. So they don't get full feeds. They can be crying a lot. They don't sleep very well. They want to be held more often. Tummy time can be very stressful for them. Those are things that we can see right off the bat. When I'm with them, I'm usually with them at night. And what I'm watching for is when they're breastfeeding is how they're breastfeeding, what's going on. Are they pulling off the breast? Is the mom in pain? Are they not wanting to be on one side, but they prefer another side? All of these things really helps me see what's kind of going on up through here, even when I'm not holding them or feeding them myself. Those are just symptoms of different things. There's other stuff when I'm feeding them and I'm feeding them a bottle. It can be that the nipple size, a lot of times everybody's like, oh, we need a size 1 nipple for the bottle. Well, most babies, if not all of them, that's too fast. And they gag on it. They want to pull back. They aren't doing the regular suck, suck, breathe rhythm that they're supposed to do. And we have to make compensations for that. So a lot of times we make compensations to be able to do what is called pace feeding. So it's holding the bottle here. I just have a bottle right here. So you're holding it kind of horizontally, but you're letting the baby do all the work and pull the milk out. And sometimes I'll do like what we call a tug of war. I'll tug it a little bit to see how strong their suck is, those kind of things, to be able to see what's kind of going on. I can also hear when they lose the latch, it usually sounds like this because the tongue isn't able to get a wrap around the nipple, whether it's the breast or the bottle full enough, and it's not strong enough. And so it just loses it to be able to maybe breathe properly, get a different, grasp of it again, all these different things. So those are things that I see, and I'm able to help with them. Now, a lot of that can also be a lot of kids are actually misdiagnosed with ADHD when they are like 3, 4, 5 years old. Because if they can't get the proper amount of sleep, I mean, just like anybody, right? For anybody, if we don't get the proper amount of sleep, our impulse control is out of whack. We don't eat properly. For a child, they tend to have more meltdowns. They run on adrenaline, so they seem hyperactive. All these things, and when you can get the proper amount of sleep, we can get better food, and they end up being calmer. We're bringing their nervous system down to more of a rest and digest instead of either being on fight and flight or functional freeze or something of that nature. And we're really, really helping getting them to a solid baseline and foundation to be able to really get off to the best solid start from day one. I mean, I can't fix everything and I can't fix everything long term, but if I can get them to the solid start from day one, at least to have building blocks to be able to go on.
And I love all these conversations about how you are seeing what's going on, not being biased, right? Because this third person who is coming to my field, my family field, is seeing, maybe I think that I'm the best mom. I'm nursing my baby. And I'm so anxious, right? But there is one thing that I always wonder, because you know that I haven't been born in the United States. I was born in Peru. And cell phones, I don't know if cell phones started being here in the 1992, maybe 1995. In Peru, we're in 2000, right? Like we are always in delay, which I think that at one point it was very good. But I don't remember seeing before, like we are now 2025, like from 2000, before 2005, at least in my country, I've never seen any baby that had a problem like breastfeeding, or that they couldn't breathe. So for me, it's like two things: what I bring as a mother in my field, because, and I'm not a perfect mother, there's no perfect mother, but I do remember when I chose to have a home birth. I chose to have a home birth first because I didn't like doctors a long time ago. But it's because my both of my grandmothers, they had their babies in they had home births. Like one, she had 10 babies and the other one had 4. And so that's first, that it was in my field. And the second one, because I didn't want to go to the doctor. And the third one, because I did want to have control of what is going to happen with my baby, right? And I didn't feel that it would be safe in a hospital. But when you make a birth plan, and I'm not suggesting this to anyone who is listening to this, but you are supposed to have a plan A and a plan B, right? I had a plan B, but it was not a plan B because I knew the exact day that she will be born. I knew the time that I will break my water, and I will know what time I'm gonna push this baby out, which it happened within 19 minutes. I broke my water at 12:19, and it was supposed to be at 12, but 19 minutes. But I didn't have that option.
She was
And I didn't
showing
have
you
the
she's in charge.
yeah. And then I didn't have the option of giving her any battles, right? Because I said, like, I'm gonna breastfeed you forever, like up until you decide. You naturally are gonna win of this. So because I didn't have that in my field, I think that it went the way it went. And in the community that I work with, that is in an indigenous community, no one can pay for this. How do you call the powder?
The oral dysfunction or the fenulum?
No, the milk, the fake milk that
Oh,
you get
formula,
this
formula.
formula. So no one can make, well, no one can
I get it.
afford formula, and mostly they will still be using, like, we used to fold this cloth to make a diaper, and they will have mostly a home birth because there's no hospital. You have to get into the Amazon River to get to a hospital for 3 hours. I don't think so. So there's no doubt, and I always say that like, because I didn't have any doubt. It went the way it went. Also, there was also, I guess, an agreement, an unconscious agreement with my daughter and with my husband, the three of us, how this is going to be. So I wonder what happened to other kids. It didn't exist, this oral dysfunction in my country, or I don't understand.
So it does exist in other countries. Brazil, for instance, checks for them every single time before the baby leaves the hospital, from my understanding, and they clip them right then. My also understanding is that Brazil has like 200 milk banks, and they are very heavily in breastfeeding. So it's interesting that what I see too is that the medical field says a lot of medical fields say that they're a fad, they're really not this, they're all of this stuff. But what I see is that we live in a society that says feed on demand. Feed basically whenever the baby cries, whenever the baby wakes up, whatever, just literally feed the baby all the time. Now, that can be extremely exhausting. We live in America, and I would assume in Peru, you probably had your mom, your aunts, your grandmother, maybe cousins to be able to help you with the baby so you could get some sleep, and they probably made food for you. They probably did some other things, which is what we call a postpartum doula in our society and a lot of other societies too. And they do a lot of that. So you're literally just bonding and feeding your baby. And that's not a bad thing at all. But part of what also is going on is that those babies may not be getting full feeds. They're getting food, but then they're growing. They may be on a very slow curve going up. You may be feeding them 15 times a day, or some people might be feeding them 5 times a day because they are able to really suck and really be able to get food. You may have an excellent supply because she's constantly at the breast, so nobody's worried about your supply. Whereas somebody who may be feeding less may have an excellent supply too, but the baby's able to get a lot, so she's not worried about her supply. We also don't really know how much a baby's getting when they're breastfeeding. We have things that we say weighted feeds and what have you. My intuition has always been they're not right. Even though a lot of people say, well, scientifically it's this, and this. It's right down to like the point, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yep, that's great. That's awesome. But I just don't always feel that it is right. But that doesn't mean the baby's not growing. And what we look for is really the baby growing. That is what medical looks for. Babies gaining weight, they're growing, they're fine. They're breathing, their eyes are fine, they're hearing, all the basics and all the major basics. They're hitting some milestones. We've widened the milestone, we've widened it for different aspects of the baby. So it's a wide range of what is considered normal for a lot of these milestones. And I'm curious to know Did we widen it because we didn't get an OT or we didn't get the support into these babies that could be able to help them in ways that brings down that why am I can't even think of the word now, but brings down that wide bandwidth of what is the range of normal. But I'll never know, really. But that's really what it comes down to, is that we're taught to just literally feed the baby every time they make a noise. We're not taught, society at large, we're not taught to help them sleep. We are taught that that's actually a bad thing to do. But what we also do is, if babies, just like human adults, if babies don't get the proper amount of sleep, they're not going to eat well. And if they don't
Oh
eat
yeah.
well, they're not going to sleep well. So it's going back and forth. So a lot of times parents also don't give it enough time to know if what they're doing is what the baby needs. Because if the baby's crying, they're like, oh, that's not working, even if it's been like 2 seconds, and they'll try something else, and then they'll put them on the breast and they'll feed. Well, they don't always feed. It's a comfort thing too. So sometimes you can give them the pacifier because they use the breast as the pacifier. But if you're constantly giving them the breast, they may not be getting full feeds. And what you're doing now is developing their neural pathways that every time they cry or they wake up, they get food.
Yeah, yeah. But I have a question here. What I was trying to say in the other aspect of this conversation is that body structure that you were talking about, that you were playing soccer and my hips and this and this and this. When you see a baby, because that's what I think. When I see a baby, specifically a toddler that is under 3 years old, whatever I see in them, whatever they are emotionally or they are having physically, is just an expression of how was the pregnancy, how was the birth, and the emotional state of the mother. And I think that when you see a baby, you have to see the mother, right?
Yes. I mean, obviously, yes, you have to see the mother too. So with that being said, I was adopted. So it brings in a very different dynamics. We didn't see my biological mother, but we saw my mom, because she was the one that fed me. I mean, obviously I was on formula, I had bottles, but she took care of me. And according to them, I was very colicky, I was crying, they couldn't settle me, all of these things. Well, what I've learned over the years is that I was actually, my biological mom, who I met when I was in my 20s, said I was the easiest pregnancy out of all three of her children. Well, I was her first, and she was going down a spiral, a bad spiral. And by the time she had her second, she was a little further in. By the time she had her third, she was even more in. Each time too, her emotional pain got worse. She was, I mean, it goes back to even like her mom, my biological grandmother. I see it now as she's like 80 or 90, in how she handles things. And I have compassion and understanding for her, because I'm like, wow, she's really emotionally hurt from all of her childhood and her trauma. She passed that down to her children. Now, all four of her children have some sort of emotional pain, and it comes out in different ways. There is eating disorders in the family. There is drug addiction in the family. There is behavioral issues in the family. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And when you look back at the family and kind of what happened with each pregnancy or each generation, you can see that each child was their emotional pain right from the get-go was a little stronger compared to the first. So if that doesn't show you that you start gaining your emotional development from your mother or the birthing parent, I'm not sure what does, because literally you're inside them. However they handle any situation is going through their nervous system, and the baby's inside them. So the baby is 100% feeling that. So when the baby also comes out, we say we have to co-regulate their emotions, because they don't know how to. So again, we are holding them using our nervous system and our emotional support to regulate them, and their nervous system is learning how that works. We all have different ways to do it, and we see it all on how the children are. Now, if a mom doesn't know how to co-regulate her own or regulate her own emotions, she's not going to be able to know how to co-regulate her child's. If she's got triggers and doesn't know how to help her child, it's going to come out in other ways. It's going to be in anxiety. It's going to be, they're not going to be able to calm down. They're not going to be able to get the baby to calm down. And then it's just going to be a crying fest, pretty much. So in reality, if I had my, world, perfect world, I'd want moms to heal before they conceive.
And I think that that's great, right? Because like I read, I think that it was a quote from someone saying like the broken parents, they are gonna raise broken kids, and it's not because you want to, it's just you don't have the resources. Me, here, I don't have it, and I cannot give you something different from what I know, right? And I remember in my desire to make it different than my mother when my daughter was born. So I'm just having this home birth, beautiful home birth, amazing. She's nursing, but because my mother never breastfeed me because she got they left a cotton ball on her uterus and she needed to stay in the hospital like for 2 months. My dad, there is a picture of my dad taking me. So that's one. Second, she came back to the house, and at that time, 82, she did the cry it out method with me. So that's another thing. Already I had enough with this. Yeah, the cry it out without my mom, she's so loving, but she didn't know something different, right? And so I wanted to make it the opposite. And I put so much weight on me that I said like, I'm gonna have so much milk, 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 milk. Like I was so obsessed with. I do remember at one point me crying, saying like every time that she opens her eyes, I want her to see me, so she doesn't feel abandonment, right? So,
You wanted
but
to
then
build that secure attachment.
yeah, but then I changed because it was too much for me, right? And and I do, but the other thing is like I was born March 3rd, and in Lima, in Peru, in Chile, they have the fire line or something, so you have a lot of earthquakes, and I'm okay with earthquakes, I don't care, but my mom does. So she was pregnant with me, and she started running, and that's when the birth process started with her, like,
Because
so
she
all of
she had an
this.
emotional, she had an emotional outburst. She was nervous, and it was kind of like my mom, my adoptive mom, who's my mom. She was born early, like 8 weeks early or something. Now we're talking back in the so that's there was not the same type of medical support that they have now. But my grandmother said that she went into labor because she saw a car hit a truck that had a bunch of chickens in it, but all she saw was just the blood from the chicken, and it was my grandfather whose car was it. So she thought something happened to him, and she went into a distress and went into labor. So that can happen. Your body is trying to protect you. Our body, regardless why we freak out, why we go into fight or flight, or why we go into functional freeze or fawn or any of these other things, or why we also have our emotional outbursts, is our nervous system is trying to protect us. So if our body feels that we're in distress and something's happened and it doesn't, and we're scared, our body's going to be like, oh my God, we got to get this baby out of here. We got to do this. We got to protect our body. We got all of this stuff. So we'll throw it into labor, which may not have been the right time, but that's sometimes what happens.
Wow.
And it's interesting to know that, because now what we know now about the nervous system and looking back about a lot of these different things, I see it all the time. I weigh and how and what people freak out about has a lot to do with their lineage, and it's amazing to see.
And you know what is funny, because I was born in Peru. My husband was born in Massachusetts. My mother-in-law, she was a nurse. So when he was born, almost happened something similar than my story. They put a shot, like, I don't know what type of vaccine they give you at that time, because he's from 70s. When was he? 74? But it was infected. So they infect his leg. So he needed to stay in the hospital for 2-3 weeks, and the mom left. It was the opposite story than my story, right? And now you wonder why we are together, right? Doing this life.
Yep, yep.
But I want to come back to that part that you said that the soul chooses the mother, because in my maternal lineage, all of my maternal lineage, they couldn't have a baby boy. And that's when I started also with family constellations. I start putting together the months and the people, there are almost females. And the only two males, one's been adopted, and the other one, the other male that is in my lineage of my cousins, he has a mental disorder. So, and every time that someone got pregnant, which happened to me with a baby boy, you miscarriage the baby boy or something happened to the baby boy. So I did a past life regression, and I saw the baby boy, this baby boy, my baby boy, and he explained to me how he needed to go since my great grandmother's generation and come the same. the same person, the same baby, come and come and come and come to my aunts, to my grandmother, etc., because we needed to learn something about a male figure that we haven't learned yet. And the story of the male figure is that my great grandmother, while she was pregnant with my grandmother, the husband left, my great grandfather left to sell cows or something. And he said, like, I'm going to come back before you give birth. And she said, okay. He never came back. 2 months after she gave birth, someone knocked on the door and said, like, hey, your husband died 1 month ago or something. So it was like, it's not safe, right? And it was very interesting how this soul repeat and repeat and repeat the same cycle just for us to learn something that hopefully, I hope that we have already learned after me doing these things I'm doing. I hope so.
You're changing the generation. You're changing the generation going forward, and you're changing the generation that came before you. You're helping them heal in certain ways. So hopefully that has been healed. And it's interesting you say that, because I do see, like, the families that always just have all boys or all girls, or in the generation, like, of one side is like, yeah, all we have are girls on my side, so it makes sense that we have a girl. I mean, they're not really putting that much thought into it, but I tend to,
Yeah, there is
without even knowing.
connection.
I just kind of, I'm just curious, and I just think and think and think, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting how that's happening. But yeah, that would make sense until they have their lesson that is learned.
Yeah. And one more question. What else do you offer? So you stay with the babies and you somehow you train the parents, or what else do you do?
So we do a lot of things. So, but the main thing that we do is overnight. So society at large just always talks about, oh, the parents need sleep, which is true. I mean, it's exhausting giving birth, and then if you're trying to breastfeed and it's stressful, and American society isn't really conducive to women being able to at least stay in the house for like the first 40 days, like a lot of other cultures. We offer overnights, but what I do is it's differently from my understanding. We offer the overnights, but I tell clients that's a bonus. Them getting sleep is a bonus, and that's what we use to get in the home. What I want to do is teach them about their baby. I want their baby to have a solid foundation. I want mom to have an amazing maternity leave with the baby that she enjoys. But I also want the baby to get into healthy and sustainable habits. So those are the things that I teach them about when I come in. Now, I have clients who we tell them all of this. It's all over our contracts and all of this stuff. And then when we get into the home, they don't do anything we suggest. Now, that's their choice, but I'm also like, you're paying a lot of money, and I want you to be able to, I want us to leave and you be like, wow, that was really worth it. My baby is on great routines, they sleep, all of this stuff. And what I want is for part of them getting sleep is that's where they physically grow. That's where they internalize and their long-term memory, their emotions, all of this stuff that happens when they're sleeping. So if a baby's not sleeping, they're not getting the proper amount of growth that's happening. They're not able to process their day. Their nervous system is already on, fight or flight because they're overexhausted. So I want to be able to bring all that down with also making sure that they're getting enough food. And if mom wants to breastfeed, we're going to make sure that that happens however we get it to happen. And so those are the kinds of things that I do. So as a newborn care specialist, I focus on the baby because that's what I do. Whereas postpartum doulas, even though they do overnights, they're traditionally supposed to focus on the mom. They're supposed to be kind of like what the Asians call like the confinement nanny. The nanny comes in, does the laundry, makes the food, food that actually aids in healing from pregnancy and delivery. They watch the baby if mom needs to rest. They do all like household chores. They're there emotionally for them. All of this in some other cultures too. I don't know, maybe it is in Peru or Lima or anything, but I know in the Mexican culture, they have what they call the closing of the bones, which is what they wrap it's like a ceremony, and they wrap the mom in all these blankets and they use these oils and they do this like little ceremony, but it's literally bringing the body back together. I've never had it done, but from what I understand, it's really healing for them. And so those are the kind of things that the postpartum doula, in my opinion, should be doing and being able to help the mom, where newborn care specialists come in and they teach you about the baby.
And I think think that talking about the sleeping side of having a baby, man, it was crazy. It was like I'm telling you, Erin, at one point, like I felt that I was going nuts. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sleeping every 45 minutes, but it was my own necessity because then I realized, like when she was 4 months or 5 months, like she will wake up, but I didn't need to nurse her necessarily. She wouldn't cry, but because I had that abandonment wound. I thought I was being a bad mom if I wasn't giving her my book, right? So it was me, it was not her, right? And I remember exactly the day when I weaned her. It was 2018, no, 2000. She was born in 2017 or something. We were flying from Boston back to Peru because we came to visit for Christmas, and she was 3 years and 4 months. And I talked to her we're in the plane. I said, like, I cannot nurse you at nighttime anymore because I'm too tired. I cannot be waking up for 3 years and a half every hour. Like, I'm just exhausted. And she said, like, okay. And she said, like, but I might be start sucking my thumb. And I said, okay. And she started sucking her thumb to sleep. And I was like, she doesn't need me, right? And it hurt me. Like, I'm telling you, I was like, wait, what? But I think that the sleeping part for that mother and the couple, in fact, like, because let's include the men in this picture too, and also all the things that the mother brings with her when you get pregnant and when you give birth is a lot. And if it's a lot for me that we was an adult, imagine how much is for a baby, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I tell parents all the time. Just because we need to learn what the baby is telling us, not what we're projecting onto the baby based on our own fears, our own expectations, our own everything. So, I mean, going back to that abandonment that you said too, it makes a lot of sense because you didn't want that to be happening to your baby. So you made sure that you went to them all the time for everything. But that was also not respecting your child because you weren't learning her and what she was telling you she needs, and it was disrespecting you because you need sleep.
Yeah.
So those two things that went on was disrespectful to the two of you. And is when you had a respectful conversation with her at an age that she could understand, she told you and she did it, and everybody, was finally falling asleep. I start this early. So for instance, we have twins that I'm dealing with right now or working with, and
I didn't have an airing. I didn't have an airing until, you see.
so we have these twins, and last night they woke up. One of them woke up at noon, midnight, not noon, and I fed him because he needed to. And then like four hours later, so he started to stir and what have you, and I gave him the pacifier. He took the pacifier. He can't hold the pacifier; he's got oral stuff, so I had to literally hold my hand really lightly, like right here, and just so that if it started to fall out, it wouldn't fully fall out. He wasn't hungry. He didn't eat for the rest of the night. The time that he started to really get fussy, I picked him up. I held him for about an hour and a half or something like that. And he had the pacifier and he was content. Now, if he was hungry, he wouldn't have cared if I was holding him. He would have been screaming. He would have been this. He would have been that. Fine. And then I would have fed him because I'd be like, oh, wow, you're really feeding. You're really hungry. But the fact is that he wasn't. Could he have had gas? Could he have had reflux? Could he have just needed that extra TLC? Could he have needed the pacifier just for that comfort to be able to be like to fall asleep? All of that, absolutely. But I was doing my best to respect what he needed instead of just projecting and going, I'm going to feed you. And now over time, you've learned to fall asleep to when you're eating, which
Yeah.
in the long run can be very detrimental for the parents, as you saw, because you were probably feeding her every time she moved or she woke up and she would fall right asleep. She wasn't necessarily hungry. She just knew that if I got that, I could go to sleep. So the association, and you developed her neural pathways from day one to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were like, I got to do this. So what you did is you took control of the situation. You were a mom, you were the alpha parent, and you were like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need help because I need to take care of myself, which in turn is going to take care of you. And this is what we're going to do. And this is one of the downfalls that I see in America. We don't take on the alpha figure as a parent. We are very nervous of messing our children up. So every time they cry or they do something, we tend to give in to them. Well,
Yeah.
that's not teaching them. I tell parents all the time, I go, okay, great. So you give them the $2 toy that you buy at Target today because they had a tantrum at 1 year old. And you keep doing that, but by the time they're 16, they're going to want the $70,000 vehicle. And that tantrum that they started at like 1 year old or even 6 months old because they wanted the chocolate cake and you didn't want to give it, you gave it to them because they had a tantrum. Well, it's just, you can control that, but by the time they get older and they're physically stronger, you can't always control how they're going to express their emotions. And sometimes it can be violent. And that's, I was going to say, and that's not good. But the fact is that it was built upon from day one that if they didn't get what they wanted, they threw an emotional reaction. We call them tantrums in America, but it was an emotional reaction to the fact that they weren't getting what they wanted, but they were also showing you, I need your help to regulate my emotions. And the way that American regulates them is by giving them the thing. As we can see, we have a bunch of people nowadays that are emotionally distraught. They have no idea how to regulate their emotions. I mean, here's a great example, okay? I'm in my 40s. I'm almost 50. I'm old. I'm like decrepit because I'm old. But anyway, several years ago, I got mad at an agency owner for something stupid. Honestly, it was really something stupid, but I was really emotionally triggered about it. And just like a month ago, I ended up apologizing to her, and she goes, "Erin, I didn't think about it after we saw each other." And I go, you're definitely a lot more healthier than I am, but I needed to apologize to her because she didn't deserve that. But when it was going on, I had no idea that these were my emotions, and I had no idea how to handle them because I was never taught. So even as an adult, I'm trying to go back and learn them and heal and do that, but I still need to apologize for my behavior to people. And that's another step that we don't learn as kids, but I'm trying. So I'm trying to change what I was taught, and I was taught that because my mother didn't know how to handle the negative emotions because she was never taught how to handle the negative emotions.
And the cycle goes on.
Exactly. And like you wanted to break it with your daughter. I don't have children. I just wanted to break it. I didn't want that anymore. I didn't like it. I didn't see, same thing with my husband. He wasn't taught how to regulate his either. And so we're both trying to navigate this together. And I see, I mean, it's been years that we've been doing it and it's a lifelong thing, but I see him trying really hard, and he sees that I'm trying really hard too. So it really helps us work together. And it also really helps that we acknowledge that we see the other person has made some major strides, or they're really trying. Like he said something the other day, he's like, I'm really trying to do this because of blah, blah, blah. I go, I know, I see that you are, and I really appreciate it. And he's like, you do see it? And I go, yeah. He goes, because I really am. I was like, I know you are. Now, the people think that that's what you should be doing with the toddler. And I'm like, but the thing is that if we weren't taught how to handle our own emotions back then, or all these different things, we still have the emotional capacity of those ages. Yes, they've grown a little. Right. They've grown a little bit because we've grown a little bit, but they're still not at the age that we are chronologically, and we have to bring them up. And so we have to do these things. So even though it may sound silly that I am acknowledging that I'm seeing this and I'm giving him kudos for those things, but we need to do that because that's how people trust us. They can be vulnerable in front of us. They trust that they can trust us, that we're going to see that they're trying. It's like a toddler. It's like a newborn. It's like any of that. And that's some of the hardest things that people have as an adult because they don't want to feel like, they don't want people to think that something's wrong with them, or they have so much fear to show those vulnerabilities because they weren't allowed to show them when they were younger. And that's where we are in the United States. And that's one of the things I want to change from newborns. Like I said, I would love to be able to get moms and dads, because we're learning that the egg and the sperm are holding on to emotional stuff. And obviously when they come together, they're bringing those things together. So if we can get both mom and dad to emotionally heal before they conceive or start working on it, we have a better chance of that child having better emotional outcome, and then they have a better emotional development as children and going forward. Now because I can't get to every parent because parents do their thing. I am really trying to get it in the private childcare industry and get the parents to understand that you need to hire somebody who understands emotional development to be able to help your child, because it doesn't matter if they're with your child 5 hours a week or if they're with your child 50 hours a week, that person is going to have a lasting impression on your child. And if they don't know how to handle your child's emotional development in those unregulated actions or emotions at that time, and they say something to them, it can either hinder or help them. And we want to be able to help them. We don't want them to all of a sudden at 50 years old going, when I was 3 years old, my childcare provider did this and it really is still bothering me. So I'm trying to get parents to understand this, which also at the same time, I'm trying to get the nannies and the childcare providers to understand that they need to have healthy emotions working with children as well. And I am the first one to say, when I started in this field, I had no idea about this stuff, but it only came about through me healing and seeing how it affects children, and how what I do now as an adult in those aspects were things that I did as a child. And that's how I've learned.
Bravo, bravissimo. I love it. I really enjoy your conversation. I wanna just to share with me your website or where we can find you, your social media.
Sure. So yeah, my website is gentlegiraffes.com. My Instagram is instagram.com/gentle giraffes newborn care. And then Facebook is facebook.com/newborn Gentle Giraffes newborn care and family services. So we have a YouTube channel too that we were uploading some videos of different things that we've done over the years as well. And we have some really exciting news that will be coming out probably the next couple of months of different things that we're doing, trying to show. I've also sponsored a health and well-being Q&A for newborns on a functional level. So we have a chiropractor and a cranial sacral therapist and some feeding and swallow therapists to be able to help and show that just because a baby's gaining weight does not necessarily mean that they are functionally healthy, and how it also, even if they're eating, they could be eating too much and choking, and that is starting to bother their nervous system too. So we want to be able to get all of that in and support them in where they need it as well. So those are the things that I try to do to be able to help people on top of going in one-on-one with them.
This is excellent. This is a beautiful work that you are doing. I hope that any other time we can join and talk more about this. It's fascinating. Like, the baby world is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna put here on the link your links and your information, so if people can reach out to you. And thank you so much, Erin, for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.